How can Zambians for 30 years not have a single xenophobic incident, housing over 5 countries? These borders, the true reason, the true nature, they were first private entities. They were run by private companies of royal families, as well as literally a comprador bourgeoisie of a white settler community. How can 2 million people in Botswana think they can carve a path in an economic global balance of forces that includes a population base in China of 1 billion to 2 billion people? What does Botswana say in a trade negotiation with China? Colonization. In economic terms, it was always about separate development. The true name was coined by the Broederbond as apartheid. So the post-colonial state has been unable to render separate development incapable of continuity. The future that is profiling itself even here in South Africa is the future of enclaves, self-sufficient, high-walled estates. You see them in Stellenbosch, you see them in Tshwane, where people are able to grow up with schools, malls, power, sewer, completely insulated from the rest of society. Those are the enclaves economies. But the enclaves economies is another name for apartheid. If no one will come and destabilize this, then the people are on their own. In conclusion, I said that in Machel and many of his generation was the refusal to be put in a kitchen called Mozambique, to be put in a kitchen called Botswana, to put in a kitchen called KZN. They understood that the economic destiny of Mozambique, these borders, the true reason, the true nature, they were first private entities. They were run by private companies. Angola, Rhodesia, Cape, Province, Mozambique. They were private companies of royal families, as well as literally a comprador bourgeoisie of a white settler community. They were not meant as states to survive. How can 2 million people in Botswana think they can carve a path in an economic global balance of forces that includes a population base in China of 1 billion to 2 billion people? What does Botswana say in a trade negotiation with China or with the US? That's why Europe, in the latter part of the 20th century, reorganized itself in population numbers. These states, Lesotho, about 3 million people. Huh? Namibia. Some people, when we say Zimbabwe, they think we're talking about a huge populated 26 million people. Kept to themselves, South Africans, Zimbabweans will not be able to matter in an economy that is now a global village. You can't go back to the 19th century. You can't go back to the kingdom of Ushaga. You will perish as that kingdom did. A true economic emancipation program A true economic emancipation program has to imagine this region like post-war Europe. We need a pulling together of massive capital investments to reignite a post-war economy. The contestation of the future we seek, the contestation of a tomorrow, either we approach it together, as Marshall thought of this region, as a single unit. Either we do that together or we perish in our kitchens.
My name is Sabalo Khotoana and I'm from Rhodes University. I'm doing my second year in BA, majoring in politics and history and sociology. I have a question to Dr. Mbuyiseli about the SADC, the question of the SADC. Does he want us to have one country, the SADC countries become one country so that we can be unified as Black people? Thank you so much.
People when we say there must be a treatment of SADC as a single entity, yeah, do you want us to be one country? Is Europe one country? So how come here the question of fundamental regional cooperation is so bastardized? And I suggest that it's because we are losing the public discourse. We are losing the public discourse. So we shouldn't retreat. We shouldn't retreat. It's not difficult. Fanon once said, our people can understand anything on the condition you want them to. So how can Zambians for 30 years not have a single xenophobic incident, housing over 5 countries? Zambia is a very small country. Very, very small. But they think of themselves as part of the region. Of course, there are opportunists, in my view, who exploit this struggle of explanation in South Africa, who had very less price to pay. You know, we don't get a lot of, Marshall, we don't get a lot of the government of Mozambique, for instance, over-condemning much and much. There's no noise coming from. I've just described the devastation apartheid caused in Mozambique, in Angola, in Tanzania, in Zambia. Hey! Safa in Nigeria and Ghana. Mobilized to work against or in favor of the fracture that much and much would have us believe must attain in South Africa. In comparison to Angola, in comparison to Lesotho, in comparison to Mozambique, they are not making noise. The approach of those heads of state understands the developmental challenges that produce the type of outbursts that you see, for instance, on the 30th, or that we experienced on the 30th of June. I think that hypocrisy of Nigeria and Ghana has to be called out in no equivocal terms. It is un-African. It pretends to be a pan-African outbreak. It is not. It is consummate with very reactionary forces in the West and in the Middle East that would have South Africa completely isolated from the rest of the world. It's consummate with that agenda. So no, you really can keep your country. You really can. But the point is a developmental agenda that does not treat SADC as a single entity. It's going nowhere. That's just the brutal truth. There's a reason why all those kingdoms fell apart before colonial triumph. There's a reason why they couldn't resist colonization. Because the Zulus alone wouldn't. Abatembu alone wouldn't. They couldn't in 1700s. They're not going to do it today. Makanda couldn't do it. So will you not, on the basis of being Xhosa. You are not. I'm sorry. This news, maybe you didn't know, but this is the truth. That's why these people gathered and said, let's act as one. Do not turn your back against that heritage, because it's that heritage that have me today call Ramaphosa cupcake with his dollars in his couch, and I can go home without being killed. To enter Siskaya, I would have had to produce a passport. Maybe you don't know that. So you are not going to constitute a developmental project if you keep to those kitchens. You will perish. You will be enslaved again. So there was a wisdom to the Pan-African agenda. You know, the ANC is actually historically the organization of the region. But I think they've forgotten that. Certainly Panyaza doesn't know that. And Enoch Godongwan. So yes, that indeed I think must be, we have to insist, we have to educate on this question patiently and out of love. Jacinta. She's part of a very big frustration about the economic and living conditions. And there is really a strong belief that if all these Africans leave, it might resolve my broken school, it might resolve the crime, it might resolve unemployment, income levels, But, and which leads me to the point the program director made about, if you don't think South Africa is a post-war society, what do you think those townships are? They look exactly like Mozambique. No difference. Spaceless spaces, overcrowding, landless, unserviceable. Unserviceable. They were meant to be transit camp. They were not meant to be settlement areas. They are a product of war. Because colonization, as Mbembe would tell you, is a war. It's a necropolitical machinery. It's the machinery of death. Its product is always already the production of death, not of life. No, I agree. Do you know, I don't have time, but Utatma Vuso is here. We had a session with him about the ANC, the struggle, and what was called the Chris Hani Memoranda. We read it. It's on the podcast. And shout out to African Renaissance Podcast. It's got 100,000 subscribers today. Mama Machel, it's possible that Samora Machel represents a much larger decapitation of people who meant it in the struggle. I think so. I think Hani and the first generation here in South Africa, Mr. Mavuso is here, will speak. Steve and all of them. Steve Biko, yes. All of those chaps. I think it was deliberate. Apartheid knew it was making its way. It was making way. They were either killed or at some point just marginalized. The best of the best were marginalized. Have you noticed that the people who used to be very good, who were better than you in class, who were better, who were working hard at school, are not the ones running the country? Have you noticed that? Spetwa is semi-illiterate, And semi-illiterate, iti yona organic intellectual. Semi-literacy is not so much that you don't have or you have lower education. No, semi-literacy is a culture that you know enough. There is no longer something to know. It's a culture that is anti-intellectual. You can have a semi-illiterate culture exuded by a PhD person. It's a specific culture that we don't have to know enough. We know enough, we don't have, let's eat, let's just act. But I'm saying, it's possible that this infiltration strategy we so undermine, that is actually also understudied, is that the people we were left with, in Frelimo, in the ANC, in CCM, you name it. It's the Askaris, Komtsotsis, deliberately meant to render the project of the post-colonial state incapable of true transformation. I mean, think about these people. Think of Samora Machel, and you're like, okay, Ramaphosa, where do you come from? Who are these people? No, honestly, who are these people? Where do they come from? Why do they sound differently to their generation? Why do they act differently to their generation? Who are these people? Now, if you don't know, and this is the last thing I will say, Cyril Ramaphosa is Steve Biko's generation. They were in Saso's generation together. These are people who were shaped in the same milieu. This Ramaphosa of yours. I'm saying you've got to wonder, Bab Mavus, you've got to wonder. You've got to wonder. Paul Mashatile. Where do these people come from? Who are these people? I'm saying listen to them, look at their actions. They are from that generation, Bantwana Benkosi. They didn't fall from the sky. These people lived in the same milieu. So the question is really, why are they different? Why are these people so driven by gluttony? Eating for its sake. They must just eat, Bona. So I am 100% convinced that there was a deliberate plan, a deliberate infiltration of Komtsotsis, the lowest amongst us, to swell the ranks of society. This is the truth, shame. But we don't have time to give it flesh. Final, Marxism. You know, socialism is the only system that is not allowed to fail and try again. Capitalism, how many times has capitalism fallen? It produced the greatest crisis. This crisis we see from Cape to Cairo is a capitalist crisis. It will produce the 2008 global economic crisis. Capitalism will be bailed out. It will reboot and go on and even take bonuses and go on as if it's business as usual. So I'm saying we can't give up on the dream of a society that is not based on the production of profit for profit's sake. We have to hold on to the possibility of a classless society.